Vasishta continued, I shall now declare to you the creation and its secret. For it is only as long as one invests the perceived object with reality that bondage lasts. Once that notion goes, with it goes the bondage. Here in this creation, only that which is created grows, decays, and then goes either to heaven or to hell, and it gets liberated. During the cosmic dissolution, the entire objective creation is resolved into the infinite being, which is variously designated as Atma, Brahman, Truth, etc. by the wise, to facilitate communication and dialogue. This same infinite self conceives within itself the duality of oneself and the other. Thence, mind arises, as a wave arises when the surface of the calm ocean is disturbed. But please bear in mind that just as a gold bracelet of gold is but gold, and the gold exists without being a gold bracelet, but golden bracelet does not exist without gold, the qualities and the nature of the created and the potentiality of creation are inherent in the creator. The mind is non-different from the infinite self. The mind has no existence independent of the infinite self. Even as the mirage appears to be a very real river of water, this creation appears to be entirely real. And as long as one clings to the notion of the reality of you and I, there is no liberation. Not by merely and verbally denying such a notion of existence is it obliterated. On the contrary, such denial itself becomes further distraction. Rama, if the creation is in fact real, then there is no possibility of its cessation. For it is an immutable law that the unreal has no real existence, and the real does not ever cease to be. Austerity, meditation, and such other practices can therefore not cause its cessation, nor enlightenment. As long as the notion of creation lasts, even the contemplation in which there is no movement of thought, the nirvikalpa samadhi, is not possible. Even if it were possible, the moment one returns from such contemplation, the creation with its sorrow arises in the mind. Movement of thought creates the notion of created objects. Movement of thought creates the notion of created objects. Even as the essence exists in all things, as oil exists in sesame seeds, as aroma exists in flowers, the faculty of objective perception exists in the perceiver. Even as the dream objects are experienced only by the dreamer, the objects of perceptions are experienced by the perceiver. Just as from a seed the sprout arises in due time, this potentiality becomes manifest as the notion of creation. Vasishta continued, there is a holy man named Akashaja. Literally, in English, it means born of space. So there is a holy man named born of space. He is in constant meditation and has the welfare of all at heart. He had lived for a long time when death desired to devour him. When death approached him, it had to struggle with a fierce fire that protected the holy man. Even after fending this off, death was unable to touch him. Bewildered by this extraordinary and unprecedented event, death went to the Lord Yama, who presides over the destinies of mortals, and questioned him. Please, Lord, tell me why it is that I am unable to grasp him. Yama answered, in fact, you do not really kill anyone. Death is really caused by one's own karma, the fruition of one's own action. Hence, discover this man's fatal karma. Even as no one can find the whereabouts of a barren woman's son, death could not discover the holy man's karma. Anywhere in the world, he reported this to Yama. Yama said, this holy man Akashaja was truly born of space and has no karma at all. He is as pure as space. Hence he has incurred no karma which can help you grasp him or devour him. Even as a barren woman's son, this holy man is not born. He had no previous birth karma either, and therefore he has no mind. Hence he has not even committed a mental action which could bring him within your reach. He is nothing but a mass of intelligence. He appears to be a living being only in our eyes. In him there does not exist any such notion as can give rise to karma. Consciousness is reflected in consciousness, and the reflection assumes independence. It is a false assumption, not a real existence. And this holy man knows this truth. Even as liquidity is naturally present in water, emptiness in space, this holy man lives in the Supreme Spirit. His is a causeless manifestation, and hence he is known as self-created. He who entertains the foolish notion that I am this body made up of earth is entangled in matter, and you can overpower him. Since this holy man has no such notion, he is beyond your reach. This holy man has never been born. He is pure consciousness that has undergone no change. In the infinite being at the beginning of an epoch, there arises a vibration on account of latent ignorance, and this manifests as diverse beings, as if in a cosmic dream. Uninvolved in this holy man remains pure consciousness. Vasishta said, in the Creator there is neither a seer nor an object of perception, the seen. Yet he is known as self-created. He shines in cosmic consciousness as a painting in the mind of an artist. Vasishta continued, in the Creator there is no memory of the past since he had no previous karma. He does not even have a physical body. The unborn is of spiritual substance. Mortal beings have two bodies, as it were, one physical and the other spiritual. But the unborn Creator has only the spiritual, since the cause that gives rise to this physical does not exist in him. He was not created, but he is the creator of all beings. Surely, the created, like a gold bracelet, is of the same substance as that of which it was created, the metal gold. The Creator's thought being the cause of this manifold creation, and the Creator himself having no physical body, the creation is truly of the nature of thought, without materiality. A throbbing arose in the Creator whose thought had spread out as the universe. This throb brought into being the subtle body of all beings. Made only of thought, all these beings only appeared to be, though they felt that the appearance was real. However, this appearance, thus imagined to be real, produced realistic results or consequences, even as sexual enjoyment in a dream does. Similarly, even the Creator, the holy man of the story, though he has no body, appears to have a body. The Creator is also of a dual nature, consciousness and thought. Consciousness is pure, thought is subject to confusion. Hence he appears to come into being, arise, though he does not so arise. He is the intelligence that supports the entire universe, and every thought that arises in that intelligence gives rise to a form. Though all these forms are of the nature of pure intelligence, on account of self-forgetfulness of this and of that, and of the thought of physical forms, they freeze into the physical forms, even as goblins, though formless, are seen to have forms on account of the perceiver's delusion. The Creator, however, is not subject to such delusion. Hence, he is always of spiritual nature, not materialistic. The Creator is spiritual, and even so his creation too is in reality spiritual in essence. This creation is causeless. Hence, it is essentially spiritual, even as the Supreme Being Brahman is. The materiality of the creation is like the castle in the air, an illusory projection of one's own mind, imaginary. The Creator is the mind. Mind or pure intelligence is his body. The thought is inherent in the mind. The object of perception is inherent in the perceiver. Who has ever discovered a distinction between the two? Valmiki concluded, at this stage, the sun sped towards the western hills, as if eager to meditate upon the sage's words and to illumine other parts of the earth. The assembly dispersed for prayers. The next morning, all the members of the court reassembled as before. Rama asked, O holy sage, please tell me what the mind really is. Vasishta replied, even as empty, inert nothingness is known as space, mind is empty nothingness. Whether the mind is real or unreal, it is that which is apprehended in objects of perception. Rama, thought is mind. There is no distinction between the two. The self that is clothed in the spiritual body is known as mind. It is that which brings the material or physical body into existence. Ignorance, samsara, mind stuff, bondage, impurity, darkness, and inertia are all synonyms. Experience alone is the mind. It is none other than the perceived. This entire universe is forever non-different from the consciousness that dwells in every atom, even as an ornament is non-different from gold. Just as an ornament potentially exists in the metal gold, the object exists in the subject. But when this notion of the object is firmly rejected and removed from the subject, then consciousness alone exists without even an apparent or potential objectivity. When this is realized, evils like attraction and repulsion, love and hate, cease in one's heart, as also the false notions of the world, you, I, etc. Even the tendency to objectify ceases. This is freedom. Rama asked, Holy Sir, if the object of perception is real, then it shall not cease to be. If it is unreal, then we do not see it as unreal. So how can we overcome this? Vasishta said, Yet, we see that there are holy ones who have overcome this. External objects like space, etc., and psychological factors like I, etc., exist only in name. In reality, neither the objective universe, nor the perceiving self, nor perception as such, nor void, nor inertness exist. Only one is cosmic consciousness. It's called the Chit. In this, it is the mind that conjures up the diversity, diverse actions and experience, the notions of bondage and the desire for liberation. Rama asked, O holy sage, what is the source of this mind and how did it arise? Kindly enlighten me on these. Vasishta replied, After the cosmic dissolution and before the next epoch dawned, the entire objective universe was in a state of perfect equilibrium. There then existed the Supreme Lord, the eternal unborn, self-effulgent, who is the all and who is omnipotent. He is beyond conception and description. Though he is known by various names, like Atma, etc., these are viewpoints and not the truth. He is, yet he is not realized by the world. He is within the body too, yet he is far. From him emerge countless divinities like Lord Vishnu, even as countless rays emerge from the sun. From him emerge infinite worlds as ripples arise from the surface of the ocean. He is the cosmic intelligence into which countless objects of perceptions enter. He is the light in which the self and the world shine. He ordains the characteristic nature of every created thing. In him the worlds appear and disappear, even as a mirage appears and disappears repeatedly. His form, the universe, vanishes, but his self is unchanging. He dwells in all. He is hidden and he overflows. But his mere presence, this apparently inert material world and its inhabitants are ever active. Because of his omnipresent, omnipotent omniscience, his very thoughts materialize. By his mere presence, this apparently inert material world and its inhabitants are ever active. Because of his omnipresent, omnipotent omniscience, his very thoughts materialize. This Supreme Self cannot be realized by means other than wisdom, not indeed by exerting oneself in religious practices. This Self is neither far nor near. It is not inaccessible, nor is it in distant places. It is what in oneself appears to be the experience of bliss, and is therefore realized in oneself. Austerity or penance, charity and the observances of religious vows do not lead to the realization of the Lord. Only the company of the holy men and the study of true scriptures are helpful, as they dispel ignorance and delusion. Indeed, when one is convinced that this self alone is real, one goes beyond sorrow on the path of liberation. Austerity or penance is self-inflicted pain. Of what value is charity performed with wealth earned by deceiving others? Only they derive the fruits of such charity. Religious observances add to one's vanity. There is only one remedy for ignorance of the Lord, the firm and decisive renunciation of craving for sense pleasure. Rama asked, Where does this Lord dwell and how can I reach him? Vasishta replied, He who has been described as the Lord is not very far. He is the intelligence dwelling in the body. He is the universe, though the universe is not he. He is pure intelligence. Rama remarked. Even a little boy says that the Lord is intelligence. What need is there for special instruction concerning this? Vasishta replied, Ah, one who knows that pure intelligence is the objective universe knows nothing. Sentient is the universe and sentient is the soul. The sentient creates the knowable and gets involved in sorrow. When there is cessation of the knowable and the flow of attention is towards that which is not knowable, then there is fulfillment and one goes beyond sorrow. Without the cessation of the knowable, one's attention cannot be finally turned away from the knowable. Mere awareness of the involvement of the jiva in the samsara is of no use. But if the Supreme Lord is known, this sorrow comes to an end. Rama asked, Holy Sir, please describe the Lord. Vasishta replied, The cosmic intelligence in which the universe, as it were, ceases to be, is the Lord. In him the subject-object relationship appears to have ceased as such. He is the void in which the universe appears to exist. In him even cosmic consciousness stands still like a mountain. Rama asked again, How can we realize the Lord and realize the unreality of the universe that we have come to regard as real? Vasishta answered, The Lord can be realized only if one is firmly established in the unreality of the universe, even as the blueness of the sky is unreal. The Lord can be realized only if one is firmly established in the unreality of the universe, even as the blueness of the sky is unreal. Dualism presupposes unity, and non-dualism suggests dualism. Only when the creation is known to be utterly non-existent, the Lord is realized. Rama asked, Holy Sir, by what method is this known, and what should I know by which knowable comes to an end? Vasishta replied, The wrong notion that this world is real has become deep-rooted on account of persistent wrong thinking. However, it can be removed that very day on which you resort to the company of holy men and to the study of the Holy Scripture. Of all scriptures, this Maha-Ramayanam is best. What is found here is found elsewhere. What is not found here is not found anywhere else. However, if one does not wish to study this, one is welcome to study any other scripture. There is no objection to this. When the wrong notion is dispelled and the truth realized, that realization so thoroughly saturates one that one thinks of it, speaks of it, rejoices in it, and teaches it to others. Such people are sometimes called Jivan Muktas and also Videha Muktas. Rama asked, Lord, what are the characteristics of Jivan Muktas, liberated while living, and Videha Muktas, liberated ones who have no body? Vasishta replied, He who, while living an apparently normal life, experiences the whole world as emptiness, is a Jivan Mukta. He is awake but enjoys the calmness of deep sleep. He is unaffected in the least by pleasure and pain. He is awake in deep sleep, but he is never awake to this world. His wisdom is unclouded by latent tendencies. He appears to be subject to likes, dislikes, fear, but in fact he is as free as the space. He is free from egotism and volition, and his intelligence is unattached, whether in action or inaction. None is afraid of him. He is afraid of none. He becomes a Videha Mukta when in due time the body is dropped. The Videha Mukta is not I nor the other. He is the sun that shines, Vishnu that protects all, Rudra that destroys all, Brahma that creates. He is space, the earth, water and fire. He is in fact cosmic consciousness, that which is the very essence in all beings. All that which is in the past, present and future, all indeed is He, and He alone. Rama asked, Lord, my perception is distorted. How can I attain to that state you have indicated? Vasishta replied, What is known as liberation is indeed the Absolute itself, which alone is. That which is perceived here as I, you, etc. only seems to be, for it has never been created. How can we say that Brahman has become all these worlds? In ornaments I see only gold. In waves I see only water. In air, I see only movement. In space, I see only emptiness. In mirage, I see only heat and nothing else. Similarly, I see only Brahman, the Absolute, in the world, nothing apart from it. I do not see the worlds. The perception of the worlds is beginningless ignorance. Yet, it will vanish with the help of inquiry into the truth. Only that ceases to be which has come into being. The world has never really come into being, yet it appears to be. The exposition of this truth is contained in this chapter on creation. When the previous cosmic dissolution took place, all that appeared to be before disappeared. Then the infinite alone remained. It was neither emptiness nor a form, neither sight nor the seen, and one could not say that it was, nor that it was not. It has no ears, no eyes, no tongue, and yet it hears, sees, and eats. It is uncaused and uncreated, and it is the cause of everything as water is the cause of waves. This infinite and eternal light is in the heart of all, and in its light the three worlds shine as a mirage. When the infinite vibrates, the worlds appear to emerge. When it does not vibrate, the world appears to submerge. Even as when a firebrand is whirled fast, a fairy circle appears, and when it is held steady, the circle vanishes. Vibrating or not, it is the same everywhere at all times. Not realizing it, one is subject to delusion. When it is realized, all cravings and anxieties vanish. From it is time. From it is the perception of the perceivable object. Action, form, taste, smell, sound, touch, and thinking, all that you know is it alone. And it is that by which you know all this. It is in the seer, it is in the sight, and it is in the seen as the very seeing. When you know it, you realize yourself. Rama said, "Holy sir, how can it be said to be not empty, not to be illuminated, and not dark? By such contradictory expressions you confuse me." Vasishta replied, "Rama, you are asking immature questions. Yet I shall elucidate the correct meaning. Even as the uncarved image is forever present in a block, the world, whether you regard it as real or unreal, is inherent in the Absolute, which is therefore not void. Just as in a calm ocean, one cannot say that there are no waves present. The Absolute is not empty of the world. Of course, these illustrations have limited application and should not be exceeded. In truth, however, this world does not arise from the Absolute, nor does it merge in it. The Absolute alone exists now and forever. When one thinks of it as a void, it is because of the feeling one has that it is not void. When one thinks of it as not void, it is because there is a feeling that it is void. The Absolute is immaterial, and so material sources of light, like the sun, do not illuminate. But it is self-luminous, and therefore it is not inert or dark. This Absolute cannot be realized or experienced by another. Only the Absolute can realize itself. The infinite space of consciousness is even purer than infinite space, and the world is even as that infinite is. But one who has not tasted capsicum does not know its taste. Even so, one does not experience consciousness in the infinite in the absence of objectivity. Hence, even this consciousness appears to be inert or insentient, and the world is experienced as such too. Even as in tangible ocean, tangible waves are seen, in the formless Brahman, the world also exists without form. From the infinite emerges and exists in it as the infinite. Hence the world has never really been created. It is the same as that from which it emerges. When the notion of self is destroyed by the withdrawal of the fuel of ideas from the mind, that which is the infinite. That which is, not sleep nor inert, is the infinite. It is on account of the infinite that knowledge, knower, and known exist as one, in the absence of the intellect. Rama said, "Lord, during the cosmic dissolution, this world, which is clearly seen now, where does it go?" Vasishta said, "From where does the son of a barren woman come, and where does he go? A barren woman's son has no existence, ever. Even so, this world, as such, has no existence, ever. This analogy baffles you only because you have taken the existence of the world for granted. Consider this. Is there a braceletness in the golden bracelet? Is it not just gold? Is there a thing called sky independent of the emptiness? Even so, there is no thing called the world independent of the Brahman, the Absolute. Just as coldness is inseparable from ice, what is called the world is inseparable from Brahman. Water in the mirage does not come into being and go out of existence. Even so, this world does not come out of the Absolute, nor does it go anywhere. The creation of the world has no cause, and therefore it has had no beginning. It does not exist even now. How can it reach destruction? If you concede that the world has not been created out of Brahman, but assert that it is an appearance based on the reality of Brahman, then indeed it does not exist and Brahman alone exists. It is like dream. In a state of ignorance, the intelligence within oneself appears as numerous dream objects, all of which are nothing other than the intelligence. Even so, in what is known as the beginning of creation, such an appearance happened. But it is not independent of Brahman. It does not exist apart from Brahman. Hence, it does not exist. Rama said, Holy Sir, if that is so, how is it that this world has acquired such a sense of reality? As long as the perceiver is, the perceived exists, and vice versa. And only when both these come to an end is there liberation. If there is a clean mirror, it reflects something or other all the time. Even so, in the seer, this creation will again and again rise. However, if the non-existence of creation is realized, then the seer ceases to be. But such a realization is hard to get. Vasishta said, Brahma, I shall presently dispel your doubts with the help of a parable. You will then realize the non-existence of creation and lead an enlightened life in the world. Vasishta said, O Rama, I shall narrate to you how this creation appears to have emerged from the one pure undivided cosmic being, even as dreams appear in the consciousness of the sleeping person. This universe is in fact the eternal effulgent infinite consciousness which generates within itself the knowable, with an idea concerning its form, and with an inquiry concerning itself. Thus is space brought into being. When after a considerable time the consciousness of creation becomes strong in the infinite being, the future jiva, also known as Hiranyagarbha, arises within it, and the infinite abandons, as it were, its supreme state to limit itself as the jiva. However, even then Brahman remains the infinite, and there is no real transformation into any of these. In space, the faculty of sound manifests itself. Then comes into being egotism, which is vital to further creation of the universe, and at the same time the factor known as time. All this happens merely by the creative thought inherent in the cosmic being, not as real transformations of the infinite. All this happens merely by the creative thought inherent in the cosmic being, not as a real transformation of the infinite. By the similar exercise of the creative thought, air is created. The Vedas come into being too. Consciousness, which is surrounded by all these, is called the jiva, which gives rise to all the different elements in this world. There are 14 planes of existence, each with its own type of inhabitants, and all these are the manifestations of the creative thought of consciousness. Even so, when this consciousness thought, I am light, sources of light like the sun, etc. were instantly created. Similarly, water and earth were created. All these fundamental elements continue to act on one another as experiencer and the experience, and the entire creation come into being like ripples on the surface of the ocean. And they are interwoven and mixed up so effectively that they cannot be extricated from one another till the cosmic dissolution. These material appearances are ever-changing, and the reality exists unchanged. Since these are all linked with consciousness, they instantly become gross physical substance, though all these are the infinite consciousness alone, which has undergone no change whatsoever. Vasishta continued, in the Supreme Being, there exists the vibration which is at once equilibrium and disturbance. On account of this, there appear space and light and inertia, though they have not really been created. Since all this happens in consciousness, they possess the quality of the knowable. At the same time, there arises the knower. It is the inherent power of consciousness to illumine all things. Hence, it is the cosmic knower. That consciousness itself becomes its own knowable and the knower. When such a relationship arises, the notion I am a jiva, I am a living soul arises in consciousness. It is the inherent power of consciousness to illumine all things. Hence, it is the cosmic knower. That consciousness itself becomes its own knowable and the knower. When such a relationship arises, the notion I am a jiva, a restrained living soul, arises in consciousness. By the further identification with the knowable, in the pure consciousness there arises the notion of egotism and then the faculty of discrimination or the rationalizing intellect. After this, the mind and the root elements arise. These root elements combine again and again to form the worlds. Spontaneously and also by orderly changes, all these countless forms appear and disappear repeatedly, even as cities come and go in a dream. None of these needs any instrumental or material cause like earth, water, or fire. For all this is of the essential nature of consciousness, and it is this consciousness that apparently creates all this. As one creates cities in a dream, it is nothing but pure consciousness. The five elements are the seed of which the world is a tree, and the eternal consciousness is a seed for the elements. As is a seed, so is the fruit. Therefore, the world is nothing but Brahman, the Absolute. In this manner has the universe been conjured up in cosmic space by cosmic consciousness with its own infinite faculties. It is not real, nor has it been really created. Though these elements have combined among themselves and created apparent materiality in the world, yet in truth all this is mere appearance, like the forms seen in space. They owe their reality to the substratum, which is cosmic consciousness, which alone is real. Do not entertain the feeling that the world of five elements is their creation. Look upon the five elements themselves as the manifestation of the power inherent in consciousness absolute. It may be said that the elements such as earth, etc., have arisen in consciousness like dream objects, or it may be said that they are mere appearances ignorantly superimposed on cosmic consciousness. Such is the vision or realization of holy men. Vasishta continued, Rama, I shall now tell you how the jiva, or the living soul, came to dwell in this body. The jiva thought, I am atomic in nature and stature, and so it became atomic in nature. Yet, it only apparently became so, on account of its imagination which was false. Even as one may dream that he is dead and that he has another body, this jiva, which in truth had an extremely subtle body of pure consciousness, now begins to identify itself with the grossness, and so becomes gross. Even as a mountain is reflected in a mirror and is seen as if it were in the mirror, the jiva reflects the external objects and activities and soon begins to think that they are all within itself, and that he is the doer of the actions and the experiencer of the experiences. When the jiva wishes to see, eyes are formed in the gross body. Even so the skin, the tactile sense, ears, tongue, nose, and the organs of actions are formed as a result of the appropriate desire arising in the jiva. Thus abides in the body the jiva, which has extremely subtle body of consciousness, imagining various external physical experiences and various internal psychological experiences. Thus resting in the unreal, which however appears to be real, Brahman, now appearing to be jiva, becomes confused. This same Brahman, which has come to regard itself as a finite jiva and endowed with a physical body, apprehends the external world, which on account of the veil of ignorance appears to be composed of matter. Someone thinks he is Brahma, Someone else thinks he is something else. In this manner, the jiva imagines it is this or that and so binds itself to the illusion of the world appearance. But all this is mere imagination or thought. Even now, nothing has ever been created. The pure, infinite space alone exists. Brahma, the creator, could not create the world as it was before the cosmic dissolution, for Brahma attained final liberation then. Cosmic consciousness alone exists now and forever. In it are no worlds, no created beings. That consciousness reflected in itself appears to be creation, even as an unreal nightmare produces real results. This world seems to give rise to a sense of reality in a state of ignorance. When true wisdom arises, this unreality vanishes. Vasishta continued, as I have already explained to you, O Rama, this world, consisting of egotism and the countless objects of experience, has not been created ever, and therefore it does not exist. What exists is Brahman, the absolute existence. Just as a wave is seen on the calm surface of the ocean when the latter is agitated, even so when the absolute thinks, as it were, that it is a jiva, the jiva nature manifests itself. Just as a sleeping person appears to create diverse creatures within himself, without ever abandoning his own unique and sole reality, by a mere thought or will, the Absolute brings into being these countless creatures, without ever suffering diminution or change or modification. The cosmic form, Virat, of this cosmic consciousness is of course of the nature of pure consciousness, uncontaminated by gross materiality. The cosmic form made of pure consciousness can be compared to an everlasting dream in a sleeping person in which there exist palaces and other beings. Even the creator Brahma is a mere thought form in this cosmic consciousness. Consciousness reflecting its own thought forms within itself is all this apparent seer and seen, all of which are mere imaginations. All of them, however, exist in name only and multiply in name only. Even as the cosmic being arose in the cosmic consciousness as a cosmic thought form, others arose from the thoughts of that cosmic being, just as one lamp is kindled from the another. But all of them are non-different from that one cosmic being on account of whose thought vibration they arose. Brahman alone is the cosmic being, and the cosmic being is all this creation, with the jiva and all the elements that constitute this creation. Brahman alone is the cosmic being, and the cosmic being is all this creation, with the jiva and all the elements that constitute this creation. Rama asked, Lord, is there only one jiva that is cosmic, or are there many jivas? Or is there a huge conglomerate of jivas? Vasishta answered, Rama, there is neither one jiva, nor many, nor a conglomerate of jivas. Jiva is only a name. What exists is only Brahman, because he is omnipotent. His thought forms materialize. One alone appears as diverse on account of ignorance. We do not experience this ignorance which disappears on inquiry, even as darkness vanishes when light is brought in to look at it. Brahman alone is the cosmic soul. You can call it Mahajiva if you want. And the millions of jivas. There is nothing else. Vasishta continued, by the apprehension of the perceived or the knowable, consciousness becomes jiva and is apparently involved in repetitive history. When the false notion of knowable apart from the knower ceases, it regains its equilibrium. In an orderly and sometimes disorderly way, the one Mahajiva thus becomes individual jiva, inheriting from the previous generation the sense of duality and of individuality. The mysterious power of consciousness, which in an inexplicable and miraculous way produces this infinite diversity of names and forms, is known as egotism. The mysterious power of consciousness that produces this infinite diversity of names and forms is known as egotism. The same consciousness, when it wishes to taste or to experience itself, becomes the knowable universe. Only immature people see in this either a real transformation or even a deluded appearance. for there is nothing other than consciousness. The ocean is water, the waves are water, and when these waves play upon the surface of the ocean, ripples, also water, are formed. Even so with the universe. Even as the ocean might look upon and recognize the individuality of the ripples, the consciousness thinks of the individuals as independent, and thus egotism is born. All this is the wonderful play of the mysterious power of consciousness, and that alone is called the universe. So this way you are right to say egotism is the universe. When egotism has come into being, that egotism, which is non-different from consciousness, entertains notions of the various elements that constitute this universe, and they arise. In unity, diversity arises. In unity, diversity arises. O Rama, give up all these false notions of I and you by renouncing even the notions of a jiva and its own cause. Renounce everything. When all these have gone, you will realize the truth which is in the middle between the real and the unreal. When all these clouds have been dispelled, the one indivisible whole shines as it has never ceased to shine. We do not know what is real or what is false. This consciousness is not knowable. When it wishes to become the knowable, it is known as the universe. Mind, intellect, egotism, the great five elements, and the world, all these innumerable names and forms are all consciousness alone. A man and his life and works are indistinguishable. The static and the kinetic manifestations of the same factor. Jiva and the mind, etc., are all vibrations in consciousness. Vasishta continued, that consciousness indeed exists here, knowing I cannot be cut, I cannot be burnt, I cannot be made wet, I cannot be dried, I am eternal, omnipresent, and unchanging and unmoving. This is the truth. People like to argue and confuse others. They are indeed confused. But, O Rama, we are beyond confusion. Changes in the unchanging are imagined by ignorant and deluded people. But in the visions of sages who have self-knowledge, no change whatsoever has taken place in consciousness. O Rama, consciousness alone has spread itself out as space without undergoing any change in itself. After that, consciousness alone appears as the wind that has the quality of motion. And then consciousness alone appears as fire, water, and the earth with its minerals, and also the bodies of living beings. When the notion of an external knowable has been removed, self-knowledge arises. And when in it there is the notion of inertia or ignorance, the state of deep sleep has come to it. Hence, since consciousness alone exists at all times, it may be said that space exists and does not exist. The world exists and does not exist. Even as heat is to fire, whiteness is to the conch shell, firmness is to the mountain, liquidity to water, sweetness is to the sugar cane, butter is to milk, coolness is to ice, brightness is to illumination, oil is to mustard seed, flow is to a river, sweetness is to honey, ornament is to gold, aroma is to a flower, the universe is to consciousness. The world exists because consciousness is, and the world is, as a matter of speech, the body of consciousness. There is no division, no difference, no distinction. Hence, the universe can be said to be both unreal and real. Real because of the reality of consciousness, which is own reality, and unreal because the universe does not exist as an independent entity, independent of consciousness. This consciousness is indivisible and has no parts or limbs. In it, the mountain, the ocean, the earth, the rivers, etc. do not exist as such, but only as consciousness. Hence, there are no parts nor limbs in consciousness. But because of the unreality of the universe, it cannot be said that their own cause, namely the consciousness, is also unreal. Such a statement would be only a set of words with no meaning, for it runs counter to our experience and the existence of consciousness cannot be denied. At this stage, the third evening set in and the assembly dispersed.